All right. Welcome everyone to our panel discussion today. Before we begin, welcome to our first International Women's Day event. Today we have a panel of women who are making a difference in their communities and who are going to share their experiences on how they got involved in activism. So first, we like to begin with the land acknowledgement. Although we are not physically together, we would like to begin by acknowledging the land on which the Community Climate Council operates. The region of Peel is part of the treaty lands and territories of the Mississaugas of the Credit. For thousands of years, Indigenous peoples inhabited and cared for this land. In particular, we acknowledge the territory of the Anishinaabeg, Haudenosaunee, Huron-Wendat, and Ojibwe Chippewa peoples, the land that is home to the Métis, and most recently, the territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, who are direct descendants of the Mississaugas of the Credit. I am currently coming to you from Caledon, Ontario, traditionally home to the Huron-Wendat peoples. Growing up, I was not familiar with the hundreds of different Indigenous communities that inhabit Canada. From grades 4 to 8, I learned history or social studies in French, where I personally only remember the umbrella terms les Métis, les peuples inuits, and les autochtones, and the struggles they faced in the past. I am grateful that recently I have had the opportunity to become more educated about the Indigenous perspectives, the struggles they have faced, and the issues still facing their communities today. Although I am still at the beginning of my journey into learning more about Indigenous perspectives, I am inspired by their connection to nature, how they respect and value all living beings, and their contributions to biodiversity conservation and ecosystem health. By acknowledging the land on which we are situated, we recognize the many contributions that Indigenous communities have made to our nation, including the ecological knowledge they hold and share with environmentalists like us here today. For those who want to learn more, 2 resources will be shared in the chat below. One to find out which Indigenous territory you are situated on, and the second describing what Indigenous communities can teach us about conservation and maintaining biodiversity. And a welcome to those of you who have never been to a Community Climate Council event before. Just an introduction to the organization. We are a youth-founded, nonpartisan organization who advocates for climate change and community resilience through instilling climate literacy and municipal relations in Peel region. We currently have 25 members and are completely volunteer-based. So a quick overview of today's session before we jump in. Today, the Community Climate Council has the pleasure of presenting a panel discussion about young leaders in activism and volunteering. Today, I will be moderating, but on the panel, we have Caledon Councillor Annette Groves and our panelists, Malia, Anandi, Jordan, Amelia, and Bianca. There will be a question and answer period at the end. So if you have any questions throughout the event, just put them in the chat and we will hopefully get to them all. All right, so to begin the panel discussion, for our panelists, can you tell us about yourself, your work in your community, and the organizations you're a part of? Anyone can jump in first.
I'm going to jump in, Nicole, if that's okay.
Yep.
Good evening. My name is Annette Groves, and I am the regional councillor in the town of Caledon for Ward 5. And this evening, I am very excited to be here to celebrate International Women's Day with members of the Community Climate Council. Michael, I'd like to thank you for inviting me and to participate in this discussion today, and for all of you who are here, welcome. Events like these, they continue to be very important as they empower women to make changes. And those changes are changes whether it's in your schools, in your workplace, or just in your daily lives. So I'm glad that this is, that you've organized this. I think it's wonderful. And I think that, you know, I'd like to urge all of you to, as young women, to continue challenging and continue participating to make a difference to our society and our community as a whole. coming from the town of Caledon, environmental activism is something that I am very passionate about. I work very closely with our climate change folks, and I think that climate change to me is really protecting our future, for young folks. And just seeing intelligent young women with this organization, such as the Community Climate Council, it makes me very excited to continue this momentum. And I certainly look forward to continue working with you. And thank you again for having me.
I can jump in next. Yeah, thank you guys for hosting this amazing event. So my name is Maliha. I'm one of the co-founders of the Stay Woke organization. It's a youth organization amplifying youth voices at the intersection of creativity and social issues. So I think our missions align pretty well here, which I think is really awesome. So apart from Stay Woke, I do a lot of work in like the nonprofit and charity sector, both in and outside of school. I'm a second year kinesiology student at McMaster. So you know, I chose McMaster because of the community that they support. And so community is always super important for me. But I guess like we'll get more into that throughout the night.
I guess I could go next. Hi everyone, my name is Anandi. I am a competitive tennis player, a high school student, and the creator of Upcycle Your Game. I am currently in grade 9 and focusing basically on business and technology. And I'm also a resident of Brampton, which helped spark the whole Upcycle Your Game organization, which is the repurposing of sports equipment, mainly sports balls, and then utilizing them through community events. Yeah.
I can go ahead and go next. My name is Bianca. I am a student at McMaster University, and I'm also the other co-founder of Stay Woke. Malia kind of covered what Stay Woke is pretty well, but I'll just reiterate. We're an organization that focuses on the intersection of social justice and creativity through youth leadership. And outside of that, a lot of my work centers around creativity and creative writing, and that's how I like to help, I guess, create change and bring light to new perspectives.
I can jump in next. So I'm Jordan. I'm currently a grade 12 student and I'm from Brampton. I've taken part in 2 different volunteering opportunities throughout my life, and they're both environmental based. The first one was at EcoSource for their Credit to New Credit Youth in Action program, which was about bridging the gap between Indigenous and non-Indigenous youth through different workshops about helping the environment. And then recently, I just finished Youth Challenge Internationals and Evergreen's Innovate My Future program, where I was partnered up with an amazing team where we also created low carbon cuisine.
Okay, so I guess I'll go. My name is Amelia. I'm also a grade 12 student from Brampton, Ontario. I'm a projects member with Stay Woke. So basically the various projects and events we run throughout the year, I help out with that. I'm also a member of One Voice, One Team as well. I like to volunteer throughout the year, different events and with different organizations within the GTA.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. And it's great to see a bunch of panelists with a wide variety of interests and volunteer experience. So we'll jump into our first question. That's not the easy one, and tell us about yourself. So what was your initial inspiration to become involved in activism and volunteering, and what continues to drive you? Again, anyone can jump in.
I can jump in here. This is actually a really interesting question. I have a little story to go along with it. Growing up, so I got involved in activism like at a really young age, or like had the interest in activism from a young age. Growing up, my mom had this rule where like we were only allowed to read like the books with the boring covers. So like fairy magic, like anything to do with like fairies, pink, purple, Dear Dumb Diary, all the books that like I really wanted to read as a child. Like I was never really allowed to read those books. Instead, she always said to go with the books with the brown covers because those always had the best stories. And I'm not gonna lie, she wasn't wrong, because that allowed me to get exposed to so many different perspectives and global issues. I learned about like wars going on in the world. I learned about so many like global injustices that really intrigued me. And so that obviously, like as a child reading that, you're going to want to find some way to help. So that's kind of what initially sparked it. So I had always been like super involved in my community. I always wanted to donate my time, whether it was like volunteering or creating like leadership opportunities for myself. I realized that there's like a lot of ways to give back in your own community, and gradually, I guess it just kind of developed into realizing that like there are so many great local like grassroots organization that you can really contribute your time to and like make it like so worthwhile. You see the impact of your work and you don't even realize until you do the research or until you're exposed to it sometimes that there's so many injustices that happen in your own community that you could be putting your efforts towards as well.
That's such a great story, and goes with the don't judge a book by its cover that your mom was able to teach you earlier than I'm sure the rest of us figured that out.
So I'm going to jump in next. And I guess one of the things really that was my initial inspiration was also my mother. My mom was a single mom. She raised 6 children all by herself, and you know, and I think my mom was an inspiration to myself and my siblings, and hence the reason I am where I am today, and in a role, in a job where I can make a difference. I certainly saw some of the struggles that my mother went through as a single mom, and so I decided to get involved in an area where I can really make a difference for those moms who are single mothers, making it, trying to make, you know, make ends meet for their children, and trying to raise these children all by themselves. And so that was really the reason that I decided to become involved in politics. I think that, you know, being involved in politics, it's given me the tools and the resources that I need to really make a difference and to really make some changes. And I've done a lot of volunteer work as well in my community. One of the things that I'm most passionate about are our seniors, and of course, and then our youth. And the reason for that is because our seniors are the ones who basically, they built the foundation. And the youth, we're relying on all of you to carry that forward and to strengthen that foundation. So I founded a youth center. It's called Chess Place, and it's really a center that is you know, it's free. We have a lot of things that happen at the center, and really the center is it's basically a place for young people to come in and you know, find themselves, if you will, find a safe place to be, to interact, and just have, sorry.
Go ahead, sorry.
So really, and when I see the difference that that's making for these young folks, really that is what drives me. And when I see some of the changes that's happening, that I've managed to be a part of making those changes happen, that's really what drives me to continue. Thank you.
I love how the first 2 people are shouting out their moms on an International Women's Day event. It really speaks to how much our parents, especially our moms, influence us as women. Does anyone else want to take on?
Yep, I can go. And honestly, to jump back on this with the mom and talk, definitely that's what I was going to say too, because fortunately my mom was and still is a part of a lot of climate city run, but also grassroots organizations. So from a young age, I was also just generally in that vicinity and then in that environment of people, like-minded people who wanted to make a change. So honestly, being forced, but definitely benefited and sparked something in me to go to these events and just even volunteer and to help out was definitely something I was fortunate to have at a young age. But then it grew for sure into volunteering on my own, and she was able to provide me with contacts to also talk to and stuff to get involved. But beyond that too, seeing people my age, which I guess more related into how much of an impact I wanted to make and if it was even possible at my age and living in Brampton, who knows. So for sure seeing people my age, but women and men of all ages just taking a stance and going for it definitely inspired me and pushed me to keep going and to even partake. And then as for some things who and some people who drive me to continue going is definitely just support and reassurance, because it's on just having people tell you what you're doing is worth it and is valuable. Is, we all need a little validation sometimes, especially because you're putting in so much that you don't know how it's going to turn out. So the support, even from a few people, it means a lot. So yeah, that's I've been pushing through with. Yeah.
That's great. And I think we can all resonate with you when you say your community and the support you get is something that continues to drive you, because without that support, I think a lot of efforts would fall flat. Anyone else?
I can go ahead and go next. This is a really hard question for me because I don't think I've actually sat down and thought about a lot of the choices and opportunities that I've kind of chosen to be a part of. But I think early on from a young age, I was really passionate about certain social issues and topics. And from that young age, I really wanted to shed light on them, especially through my writing. I even had a little blog that was shared with a few of my friends. But the thing is that I would never really go beyond that, because the concept of putting my opinions out there, putting myself out there through activism, actually really intimidated me for a long time. But then in high school, that passion was actually one of the things that inspired me when we initially brainstormed the idea for Stay Woke. And I think having my co-founder Malia there beside me, it felt a little bit less scary putting that inspiration into practice and bringing it into real life. And I'm so glad that we took that risk, because it's opened so many doors in terms of volunteer opportunities and activism opportunities for me. And after having worked on Stay Woke for 3 years now and involving myself in all those other activism opportunities, I think I've been able to see the way that amplifying voices and promoting awareness can act as the first step to almost creating a community of people who are passionate and people who want to promote change on the same platform. And I think now having that community is the thing that drives me to continue to involve myself in activism and related opportunities like that.
Amelia, Jordan, do you want to continue?
I can go. So for my inspiration, I would say it was probably my teachers. Especially when I was younger, and even now, I have a lot of really passionate teachers who would talk about all these different social issues. And especially when you're young, you get really curious and you start researching on your own. And I think using social media and getting kind of those first person perspectives of all these people going through these different issues throughout the world, especially because we don't usually get to hear those or see those in the textbooks. Using social media to my advantage, I was able to find out a whole lot about these different issues and different organizations. And I think it continues to inspire me. So
you guys were lucky to have social media at that age. I might be aging myself a bit, but social media came a bit later for me. So I attribute my lack of knowledge sometimes to that lack of access. Jordan, do you want to take it away?
Yeah, I always feel like I've been interested in social justice and activism since for a young age, but I only really got into actually doing something about it kind of because I had to, which isn't the best story, unfortunately. Obviously in Ontario, you need 40 hours of community service to graduate. So I was just trying to find something that I could get it over with. And I thought, oh, cool, this is about the environment. I care about the environment, I guess. I might as well do it. But it was through that where I actually started realizing, oh, this is a much bigger problem than I thought it was, and that incorporates so many other things as well that aren't just the environment and other social issues too. So it was definitely through that just one volunteer place that I went to because I felt like I just needed something to get hours for, where I realized, oh, this is actually important. And and through that, I started volunteering through other organizations as well. And I think the thing that just keeps driving me is knowing that I know that there's still more that I can do. And I guess I just don't want to stop yet until I know that I've done all that I could. Yeah.
Thank you. So for our next question, I think we've begun to touch on it, but if anyone wants to elaborate a bit more, what does activism mean to you?
So Nicole, I'd like to go ahead and elaborate a little bit more on activism. So the way I view activism is that we have a lot of tools and resources available, and we've got policies in place to really make a change politically, both politically and socially. We talk about social justice. You know, I've been a real activist for women. I've done a lot of work with a women's shelter and just helping women, empowering women. And so for me, I think that that's important. And really that just comes from the fact that, you know, I've watched my mom struggle through it. And so for me, activism is just trying to make that difference and to make the change politically and socially so that some of these things that were frowned upon are now, the stigma is removed and it's now being looked at as a real serious issue, because some of these challenges, it really makes it can do a lot of damage. So being an activist, I think, is using the tools that are available to ensure that it doesn't create that damage, but it certainly creates opportunities and just empower people to do better. So that is my view of activism, and I think that, like I said, as a politician, I think that I am fortunate to have those policies and fortunate to have some of the voices that we have at the table to make those changes, both again politically and socially. And I think social justice is a very important thing, and I can go on about all the things that I'm an activist about, but I don't think we'll have enough time, so I'm going to just leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Annette. Does anyone else want to elaborate on what activism means to them?
Yeah, I could add something, at least for myself, a little like high school students, definitely for me, it's more educating and making the greater community aware of like issues and things they can do. But another important part that I think some people forget to mention though, and I think is very important to do, is to provide them with alternatives and to provide them with solutions and platforms that they can take and opportunities. Just also for anyone out there, you know, it doesn't have to, you can also incorporate your own passions into it. Of course, everything can have multi-purposes. And like for me, I was able to find a way and start on and be fortunate to start my own thing of including my love and my passion, tennis, into it. But it also, there's so many aspects that it helps the environment and it helps communities come together. So if you don't think, you know, the general volunteering for a service or something is what you're more interested in, definitely there's opportunities for anything in our world to make a difference in.
Yeah, and sort of adding on to Anandi's point, like I think activism doesn't need to be this big and scary word that everyone feels like it is, because I also felt the same way. And I think it's really important to note that like when you're young, like it might not feel like you have a lot of power. It might not feel like you have the capabilities to be like a real activist and like, you know, do whatever you think real activists do, right? But really activism is just about getting involved in your community in whatever capacity you can, right? Like knowing that your story and your struggles are one of many and they're a part of a bigger picture, right? And knowing that like within the community, there are going to be people who you don't agree with, for sure. That's going to happen, or people who will take time to get to where you are and meet you at your level of activism, or they might have their own version of whatever that means, and understanding like the complexities of social issues. But in a community, you know that like you don't shame people for what they don't know. You don't say like, oh, it's my way or the highway, because like that turns people away. And within activism and various activist movements, it's important to stand your ground, but don't unnecessarily burn bridges, because you don't want to be so unreasonable in your activism that others aren't able to gain a full appreciation, right? So I think for me, activism is really about creating movements that are inclusive for everyone, but still nonetheless challenge the status quo, right? And you know, you need to be willing to make an effort and actively ensure that you're not polarizing people or different communities, and it's about uplifting them.
Yeah, and I can add on to Malia's point, I guess, and all the other points. I think activism is all that external stuff. It is doing things, it's taking action, whether that be protesting, signing petitions, etc. But I think that people forget that it's a balance between the internal and the external. So while you're doing all these external things, while you're working hard within communities, I think you also have to be thinking about yourself to an extent as an activist. So reflecting on questions like what are your subconscious biases, and reflecting on why are you really advocating for a certain issue or allying yourself with a certain community. And when you're brutally honest with yourself, you actually, it's a benefit to your actions and your activism, because then you can, I guess, like grow in a sense and be a better activist. And so I think that intersection between external and internal is really important as well.
Yeah, I definitely agree with what everyone's been saying. I think for me, activism is defined as any positive change, big or small, because I think when you're young, it's very easy to become overwhelmed by these large issues that affect such big parts of the world, and they're often so distant from us, but a lot of them are right at home, and it's very easy for us to do something small and to make that change. But we have to be able to see that that small change does make a difference. So that's mine.
Basically, echoing what a lot of the other people said, it is especially hard to, like, with youth, and we are surrounded by social media all the time, where we're just constantly seeing like new issue day after day, depending on the week it is, there's a different problem that we're discussing and people are posting on their stories. And it can be overwhelming, like Amelia was saying. So it's definitely, activism is just, even if it's not like simply signing a petition, just educating yourself and getting out there to just at least make the effort to at least know that this is going on is a step. And no matter small it is, for some people that's a lot. And small or big, it's activism, which I think is important, as long as everyone does a little bit, because if everyone does a little bit, then a lot gets done.
Yeah, all of those answers are so great. I think the intersectionality of social issues, and then also being inclusive of everyone, no matter what they can contribute, is a big part of activism, and touches on everything everyone said to that question. So moving on to the next question, what opportunities have you taken advantage of to get where you are today, and what obstacles have you encountered?
I can start. Definitely, I think volunteering is like one of the best opportunities you can do. It's a great way to just learn a lot more and make those connections. Before I went into my first volunteering opportunity, I was like, yeah, it's the environment. Climate change is bad. I know it all. And then you get there and then you're like, oh, wow, there's so many different things that I didn't know. And you meet all these different people. And it's definitely a way to get yourself out there. Because if it wasn't for my first volunteering, then I probably never would have went on to my second volunteering. So it's definitely something that's important to see that each volunteer, in each volunteership, if that's a word, will help you gain that knowledge and the more that you see different people, the more perspectives you'll get on an issue, which educates you even more, which is very important. And obviously, as like I'm pretty young, I'm 17, I've been in volunteerships with people that were a lot older than I was, and that's definitely an obstacle, because I feel like it's hard for people to listen, because they're like, oh, you're young, what you say doesn't matter, you can't even vote. And it's just kind of, it's discouraging in a sense, because you're just there to make a difference and try to help something in any way that you can, and people are just kind of saying that like what you say doesn't matter as much as what I say because I've been here longer, which I definitely think is not fair. And yeah, so that's definitely one of the biggest obstacles. But just going into like opening your eyes to different volunteering opportunities and really making those connections, getting that information, and just trying to remember that what you think is important and matters, I think that's an amazing way to get started.
And I'm going to jump in and I'm going to follow along, Jordan, where you left off. And volunteering was an opportunity for me as well. It allowed me the opportunity to understand my community, to understand what the issues are, to understand what the challenges are for people, and really to get to know the community. And because of my volunteer work in the community, and I volunteered with a large, I guess, different aspects of the community, whether it's with a soccer club, or whether it's helping seniors, or just active in the community, making sure our community is clean and cleaning up, and really taking part in making sure that we build, we help to actually reduce the GHGs in our community, so that we can leave something really great for you guys. So I looked at volunteerism as a real opportunity, and because of that, that is the reason I decided to get involved in politics, because it gave me a really good insight as to what the needs are of the community, as to what those challenges are for the community. And so taking that, I decided to get involved, and in a role where, as politicians, we're policy setters. And so we set these policies, and the policies that we set, I look at some of those policies and I can see the benefits for young folks like yourself, Jordan, and the rest of you that are here this evening. And so I'm going to encourage you, Jordan, that, don't allow those folks who have been around a lot longer than you have to make you feel that, you're just a kid and you don't know anything. Quite frankly, I think some of you guys are a lot smarter than we are, and I think there's a lot we can learn from you. So, my and I know that can be an obstacle for young people. I certainly face some of those obstacles, because when I started out in politics, one of the things, I don't look like one of those, I'm not a great big tall, looking type of person, and people looked at me and said, well, what are you doing in politics? And you're just a lightweight. And so, and I could have used that to have it deter me from my goal, but I certainly didn't. What I saw that, I saw that as an opportunity. So I think we have a chance to take a chance to take those obstacles and turn them into opportunities. And so I'm going to encourage all of you to continue on where you're going, because again, those of us here who are older, we we're not going to be around for a very long time, too much longer. So it is important that we provide all of you with the tools, with the encouragement to say, you know what, yeah, you can do it. You can do anything you want, quite frankly. So take those obstacles, turn them around so that you can succeed in whatever it is that you want to do. And that's what I did.
I guess I could jump in a bit, kind of with my perspective. As I've stated before, with my mom being a part of it, she definitely had the network to get me involved and gave me some opportunities volunteering wise. But as I grew up and I kind of had my own, I guess, like fields that I would rather volunteer and partake in, it wasn't actually that hard. And I definitely encourage everyone to go out and just, there's definitely sources out there, and especially among our community in the Peel region and beyond, there are opportunities to be taken, and you can find them, and they're out there for sure. So just, it's not as scary as you think. You could totally go out and do something with it. I think for sure a group that's been particularly helpful for me is the Future Ground Network, founded by the David Suzuki Foundation, and it's really on the realm of me starting my own organization. They've provided me with a lot of things that I wouldn't have known, and the realism of doing something as such. So if you have an idea, put forth, they're so encouraging, and they'll provide you with amazing people to help you out. Some obstacles along with all of that it's definitely something to take into consideration, is just because you put so much effort and you really push yourself to do this, and it's hard to constantly maintain the motivation, and because you can't really let your guard down, if that makes sense. You always have to be it's never going to get easier. You always have to be putting your foot on the gas. So for sure, and not knowing and being completely blindsided, and you have no idea if this is going to be successful, if anyone's going to enjoy it, if anyone's going to partake. So that's definitely something that's nerve-wracking, but I mean, at the end of the day, I'm enjoying it. So I'll put the work in. Obviously, we all wish it pays off.
Does anyone else want to jump in on that question? Otherwise, we can jump to the next one. No? Okay, so our next question is, why do you think it's important for young people to get involved in their communities and in social movements?
I can go ahead. Yeah, I just think community is like, if I don't know if anyone's familiar with Stay Woke, but if you know Stay Woke, the organization, you know that community is like basically like one of our main pillars for our organization, and we try to ingrain that with everything we do, every initiative, even like within our volunteer team. It's really important to us, and I think it's because community over the years has just taught me so much about myself, which I'm sure like many of you can relate to. It teaches you what you're good at. It teaches you like what you like to do, and it challenges you to step outside your comfort zone. Like when you know that there is a space that will elevate you, where where you're 100% accepted. That's a really powerful thing, especially as a young person, because it's really hard to find people you can connect with, right? It's so easy to fall in like with the wrong people and slowly lose yourself in the process, which is why for me, finding communities and being a part of different initiatives means a lot to me. And it's really important because it's almost like a reminder or a compass for me to remember that the things that I'm passionate about, things that matter to me, because in my experience, like when you have the privilege of finding a community that accepts you wholeheartedly, whatever that looks like, it doesn't need to be like you're in an organization or a club, whatever community means to you, nothing can stop you, because like the power in knowing that maybe you don't fit in everywhere. I mean, no one will, but knowing that you fit in and belong somewhere where these people give you so much confidence about yourself and your capabilities, being surrounded by people who uplift you or people who challenge you to be a better version of yourself is really powerful. And it allows you to form like really important leadership skills. Like we're all a leader in some capacity. You don't need to be the president of a club to be a leader, because community is truly about knowing that you're a part of something bigger, and not to romanticize the idea of like community, but it's true, because when you're part of a team, like you consider yourself part of something bigger. And when we talk in the context of social justice and community, it's powerful, because that like some of the greatest revolutions have been created through the power of community, and often communities of individuals who are ostracized or who face hardships and who struggle to fight for the right to belong and exist. So remember that like when you find a community that truly accepts you, whether it's like your dance clubs or organizations that you're all a part of, like all of these amazing panelists are part of, like you should take advantage of it, because some people look for a very, very long time to find somewhere where they can truly belong, and a place where you can be yourself.
Kind of to add to that, because that was exactly something I was going to mention, because it's a big deal. At least I believe like a lot of it's better done in teams. And I know personally, and I'm sure a lot of us have too, we've been in communities where we felt, it's broke our self-esteem. It's definitely degraded us. And being in a competitive sport, that's never easy for sure, because everyone's trying to get somewhere and trying to be the best. So even if it's just beyond an organization or anything, any little group you're in, I feel like once you found that, it's truly powerful and a big deal, because having that support means so much. Because I know taking this time during COVID and all, just being able to like really appreciate the family I have, and even beyond that, friends and stuff, how much that's made me a better person and how much it's boosts my mental state. And all of that is so powerful toward my game and towards how I put myself out there. And it provides so much opportunity, but it really just is such a comforting space. And honestly, another cliche is we are the future. And if we do not make the change, because at the end of the day, it is the life that we are going to live and we are going to bring to our children. So if we don't make the change and we are not living the life we want to be living, then I mean, you might as well do something about it because you have nothing to lose. So, you know, I say take the chance and go for it, because at the end of the day, it really can bring you it can just make you happier. And that's something I think just got to do it.
Yeah, and I will bounce off of what both of you just said, kind of. I think that the values that you gain through the communities that you're part of, the skills that you gain, the lessons that you learn, your morals, whatever, all of that transfers into when you grow up, like the workplace, your personal relationships, your social relationships. And so if you create, or if you're surrounded by like a culture of change or a culture of caring right now, like as youth, then you can bring that culture into the spaces you potentially lead in the future. And as was just said, you can actually create really impactful change.
Touching on what everybody said a little bit, I would say that power in numbers is a big thing, because especially when you're young, like we talked about, it's very overwhelming when these social issues come up because we often feel helpless. So having an organization behind you with a bunch of like-minded youth, and sometimes not, but having a safe space to talk about these issues, I think is such a great and powerful thing and can be really useful for a lot of young people.
So I'm going to follow on that as well, as to really why I think young people need to get involved. And again, you are our future. You're our future prime ministers, you're our future lawyers, doctors, scientists. And so I think it is very important for you to get involved, because at the end of the day, you need to have a sense of community. You need to have the tools that you need to make those changes, because I've watched a lot of young people step up to the plate, and I can tell you they're passionate, and it's great to see the passion that they have, because again, sometimes they teach us. Sometimes you guys are teaching us how to, to make change. And also, so I think we learn from each other. And one of the things I guess that I admire is Barack Obama. When he was running, he focused. I was amazed to see how many young people got involved with that campaign. And I think that it is so important, because the decisions that are made, they impact lives, they impact people's daily lives, they impact their livelihood. And so having young people being engaged in the community, I think that you will gain the experience, you'll gain the knowledge that you need to make these life-changing decisions. And so, I encourage all of you to continue challenging yourselves to be the change that you want to see. And I think that I've seen the climate change, your council, your climate change council is a great example of the difference that you're making. We've done a lot of damage to our environment, and it's wonderful to see the drive and the passion that young people like yourselves have, and wanting to make that change and wanting to make our environment better. Your fight against the 413, I think that's wonderful to see, because those are the things that are going to have a huge impact on your future. If we start paving over everything in our farmland, where are we going to get our food? If we start paving over in the green belt, what's going to happen to the environment? It's going to be filled with big industries and pollution everywhere. So seeing the involvement of yourselves in this fight, I guess, is what it is. I think it's really encouraging, and these are the sorts of things that will make you become those great leaders and advocates in the future. And certainly doing what you're doing will shape the future for a lot of those other young people who may not be as courageous or as strong or as confident in stepping up. So, and I think this is another reason why it's great to have people like yourselves who are leaders, you know, and I think that all of you are leaders, and you could be an example to the rest of your peers, you know, to encourage them and challenge them to be that change and to become involved in making that change. So I commend all of you, and I think that you, again, you are our future.
Jordan, did you want to finish that question off?
I feel like a lot's already been said. But yeah, just kind of reiterating, I have noticed, like, even talking to my parents, they've been like, you're in, like, you know, so much that's happening right now, like, versus how much I did when I was 17. And it's like, I feel like it's not just the me thing, obviously. I feel like our whole age group, we're getting really involved. And obviously with social media and technology, it's become a lot easier for everybody to see that there are injustices all over the world that need help and need to be fixed. And it's definitely youth like us that have been raising more of that awareness, and it's obviously working, because if more youth are aware of it than they did a couple decades ago, then it's obviously working. And I think that's all that matters, because like everyone said, we are the future. We are the ones that are going to be running this planet, and if we aren't aware, then who's going to save it, you know?
Yes, very well said. So we're coming up to the 8 o'clock hour. So for our last question, I'd like to try and do this lightning round. So if you can shorten it down to about a sentence, what advice would you give your past self?
I think something I would say is to really just go for it and do it and be fearless, because honestly, take this, you have nothing to lose in every aspect of my life, from organization and volunteering, but even to playing tennis and anything. When I get a little nervous, I get a little scared, I freeze up a bit, I always remind myself with that, and just go for it, just do it.
Let's take the Nike slogan and run with it.
Yeah, similarly, I would, oh,
Go ahead, Bianca. Go ahead.
I would say don't be afraid to put yourself outside of your comfort zone, kind of related to what you said, Nandi. I think that when you put yourself outside of your comfort zone, you're actually breaking down those blocks of fear that are preventing you from achieving the goals that you want to achieve. So that's what I would tell myself.
Malia?
Yeah, I think I would, the best piece of advice I would give past me would not to be so angry. I think when you're like really involved in activism and you see all the negative things that are going on, it's really hard to like find a balance. But if you're an activist and you really want to make a difference, maybe consider putting your energy towards something useful, like using that anger and that passion in a purposeful way.
So I guess the advice I would give my past self is really to stand up for what I believe in, not to back down, because again, maybe we feel like we're outside of our comfort zone. Maybe we feel that, you know, we're standing alone, but there's nothing wrong with standing alone. So that's the advice I would give my past self, and I can tell you that I stand alone a lot of times on a number of issues. So that's what I would say. Stand up for what you believe in, whether you have a group behind you or you're just by yourself.
Yeah, I think touching on that, I would say, going back to what everyone said too, the just go for it thing, because I think I held myself back a lot. Like, oh, I'm going to go to this event and be by myself. So I think just going for it, even if I am alone, would have been really good advice for me when I was younger.
I guess I would tell myself that what I think matters, and it's important to say, whether you think that people will think you're wrong, or if people will laugh at you, or whatever it might be, because it's easy to think that way. Just, again, go for it, say your thoughts, because they are good thoughts, and it's a good opinion that you have, and you should share it, and maybe you can change some minds somewhere.
Yes. Well, that's great advice for everyone's past self and everyone's future as well. I think we can all continue to learn all of those pieces of advice. And I'm sure I'm not alone by saying this, but everyone's responses today were so inspirational. And it's great to see women stepping up and being change makers. And especially like with our youngest panelist being in grade 9. I was not aware of half of the things that I'm sure you're aware of now. So it's great to see that social media and technology is playing such a good role in educating everyone about social issues and what we can do to make the world better. If I could take a minute just to provide our panelists one piece of advice, it would be to never stop questioning what you want to know more about. Make connections, especially with like-minded women, because it will come in handy later on, and continue to push yourself outside your comfort zone. I think all those points were mentioned in this discussion, but you're not growing unless you're uncomfortable, and that's how you learn. So thank you for all the work all of you have done in creating a difference, and I really hope that everyone continues and that we see everyone's faces again. So I'm not sure if we have much time for questions. If anyone wants to put a question in the chat really quickly. No? Okay. So panelists, if you can put your Instagram, Facebook, any way to connect with you down in the chat as well, in case some of our attendees want to follow you, or your organization's accounts. Sonia, I'm not sure if you're still here, but I'll turn it over to you for closing remarks. I don't think she's here, so I'll take that over. So thank you to all the panelists for your thoughtful insights and coming out to this International Women's Day event. And we just want to remind all of our attendees that the Community Climate Council is a nonprofit organization and 100% volunteer-led. We are grateful for our donors and supporters. And if anyone would like to make any sort of donation to the CCC, please visit our GoFundMe page. Even a donation of $1 or $5 helps us develop, design, and create free content for our community. And we look forward to seeing everyone in the future. And I think there might be a poll coming up on everyone's screen. I know we're having some technical issues in the background right now. But after the event, a very quick questionnaire will be sent out to everyone. Oh, there we go. Should be up there. If all of the attendees could just take a second to vote there. It just helps us determine what our content is as the CCC and how we can improve it. And again, thank you everyone for coming out tonight. A quick reminder that our next event will be this Saturday, March 6th from 1 to 2:30 on Zoom, where we will have a speech